All right, everyone. We should now be live on YouTube. My first ever YouTube live. I'm super excited by this platform, this feature that I've never used before. Actually, I did use it last night. I did a test run just because I didn't want to stuff up this one because I've got a guest on tonight, and this is like a planned stream. Last night went off without a hitch. So yeah, I'm excited to do more of these streams if this does well, and last night was really enjoyable, so I'm sure it'd be great. I was originally actually going to do this video like normal, like, I've been doing YouTube since 2016 where there wasn't live streaming, and I was just going to do it like I usually do interviews, and I wanted to do it the Swedish Gringo style. I wanted to do it on the beach with caipirinhas, and the more I looked into it, the more I was like, there's so many things that could go wrong. Especially the wind here in Fortaleza. We're actually both in the same city, but in different buildings right now. And that's why I kind of was like, let's meet up in person. Let's do this on the beach, Swedish Gringo style. But the wind in Fortaleza on the beach, too much. It would have been hot, windy. Maybe someone would steal my camera. And so it prompted me to go, why don't we just do this live? And I think this might actually be better because now we can take live audience questions. Like I said, it's a fun new format, so I'm excited to do this. So yeah, we were initially going to do this with a better background, but for now you'll just have to see our bedrooms as backgrounds. And at least I got a nice little photo of Fortaleza in the background there for you guys to look at. Just took that one off Google. So yeah, let me just run through how this stream is going to work today. Basically, we're going to be talking anything about Brazil. The topic of today's talk is Brazil. Rikard has a channel that's basically all about Brazil. He has some other videos as well, but I'll let him introduce it a little later. But basically, all the videos are on Brazil these days. And so, yeah, he's a really cool guest to have on a live stream talking about Brazil. So excited to have Rickard on. And also we're going to be taking questions. So I've got some questions of myself for Rickard. There's also a feature here on live streaming where you can post your questions in the comments or in the live stream chat, and I can feature them and then we can answer them. There's also a few questions I got ahead of time through Instagram. So there should be lots to get through. And speaking of my guest today, Rickard, he's better known as Swedish Gringo.
Very few people ever use my real name, especially here in Brazil.
Well, when I saw your real name, I was like, I didn't even know how to pronounce the last name. It seems like it's written in gibberish or something. Hopefully that's no insult on the Swedish language. But for my English reading eyes, it didn't look, it just confused me. But you told me before the stream how to pronounce it. But luckily you've got Swedish Gringo, which is a lot more easy for everyone to say. Should I play the video that you, I've got the video here that you sent through as kind of like a little, you can see a little bit of the Gringo before he introduces himself. Yeah. Actually, I do have a bit of a surprise for you, Mr. Gringo. 1 second.
Oh, yeah. Could it be something drinkable, perhaps? Could it be green and liquid?
Yeah, I got my caipirinha right here.
Of course you do. So I'm not going to be the one sitting empty-handed. It's not the real caipirinha, but it's like the bottled one. It's called Caipi Beats. It's whatever you, when there's no real caipirinha around. This one actually, it gets it done as well. A solid 8-9% alcohol.
Man, you're an expert salesman. Like the way you talk on your channel and everything, it's just like, I reckon you could sell anything, which makes it great for sponsorship slots, right?
I probably sell a lot of things, but I never get commission for it. So I'm the sucker around here.
Yeah, like a friend of mine and I were talking about like ways for you to like monetize your channel more, and like who would be like your biggest sponsor if you could get a caipirinha sponsor. And then her and I were talking. She's just like, yeah, but cachaça, like it's like the main one that people use is the same one that they've been using forever, and it's like it wouldn't need marketing. But maybe like a ready to drink, like you're drinking there, would be.
I can tell you a sad story if you want to hear it. When it comes to sponsorships and the perfect kind of sponsor.
Yeah.
I was actually last year contacted by, I think it's the biggest beer producer in China, and thereby also one of the biggest in the whole world. They're called Tsingtao beer. You've been in Thailand for a long time? Yeah. Tsingtao or Tsingtao, something like that. And they wanted to sponsor me, and they were willing to pay like a pretty good amount of money. And very simple sponsorship. I was just supposed to be drinking beer with my friends. Only problem, I had to find the Tsingtao beer myself. I had to find 5 bottles to share with my friends. I went to every restaurant, every shop in the whole of Rio. It was not anywhere. I went to Sao Paulo because they have, you know, the biggest Japanese neighborhood outside of Japan.
Yeah.
They just didn't have any Chinese products. So I went back empty-handed from Sao Paulo. The whole trip was just in vain, and I lost the sponsorship. So I could have been sponsored by a beer company, but I blew it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I've seen you drink beer much on your channel. It's always just caipirinha, right?
Well, you know,
but maybe if you were sponsored by Tsingtao, you just throw out the caipirinhas and then just like, I only drink Tsingtao.
I go wherever the wind blows. I go wherever the wind blows. Now in Brazil, they have a saying. They want their beer ice cold. I mean, super ice cold. Sometimes it's even, you know, ice inside the beer. And when it's getting like above like 4 or 5 degrees, it's starting to become quente. That's what they call it, hot. And my first months in Brazil, I just laughed at it. I thought it was so silly. Back in Europe, people drink stale beer. They, you know, sometimes they even heat it up a bit. But now, after a few months in Brazil, well, I've been in Brazil for 2 years, I can't drink quente beer anymore. It has to be absolutely ice cold, or it's not on at all.
Oh, that's weird. Maybe it's because of the cold weather in Sweden. But like in Australia, we drink beer cold as well. Yeah. There's actually like an ad where it's just like in a real, do you know what the term bogan is? It's like it's like an Australian that has a very like thick accent who's like very Australian. And there's like this beer ad that's like has all these like working class people like doing construction work, and it's like the best cold beer is Victoria Bitter, and like has the most bogan accent, and this guy talking about cold beer, like said like all these guys are working hard and then they cold beer, you know. So
well, the beer commercial like worth waiting for, is that also an Australian beer? Or there's some commercial that even showed in Sweden. It's like an Australian bar, and some very like Crocodile Dundee-ish person enters.
Like, maybe Foster. We have this export beer that we don't drink in Australia, but it's an export beer. So yeah, it only goes out to other countries, and we don't drink it ourselves. But yeah, man, you went off on a bit of a tangent, or we went off on a bit of a tangent there. Why don't you, tell people, for those in the audience that aren't aware of you, like who you are, what you do, and maybe a little bit about your relationship to Brazil, or why you spend so much time in Brazil and why you love it.
Sure thing. Just stop me whenever I've gone too far. I could be rambling for an hour here.
That's so good, man. I got like a few hours. I think as long as we keep it on the topic of Brazil for the most part, I think we can just talk forever.
Excellent. So get comfortable then. First off, everyone, you are just welcome to simply call me Gringo or Swedish Gringo or whatever. My name Rickard is like, I didn't even pronounce it myself the right way. That's like how far away from me my real name is at the moment. No one ever uses it here. And I have been in Brazil for like the majority of the time, the last 3 years. Came here during the pandemic for actually the second time. I was here back like ages ago. I really liked it, but I was a little shy and innocent back then. So the girls kind of chased me away from here. It was just a little too much. I don't think Tinder was
Can't
as
she?
big then. Yeah, so the girls were actually, out hunting, like on the streets.
Can I ask how long ago this was, Rickard? Like before Tinder? This is maybe
Now,
10
I'm not
years
saying
ago,
it
was
was
it? Or?
before Tinder, but it was before Tinder was a huge thing. I think it was 8 years
Okay.
ago or something like that. Now,
Okay.
girls do their business online like everyone else on Tinder. But back
Yeah.
then, they were like manually trying to hook up with guys. And
Okay.
it was just scary sometimes. I was sitting outside at a cafe enjoying, my lunch or something, and just pulls up a car, a cabriolet, open, and there's like four girls in it playing music, and I just jump into the car. We're gonna go party, and I was
Oh my
sitting.
God.
Oh, I'm gonna eat this here, and they said, "Okay, we'll come back in an hour," and they came back in an hour. I had to
Is this
find
in
them.
English or in Portuguese they were saying this? 'Cause that's
It was
impressive if they were speaking English.
it was probably a
Yeah,
mix of
okay.
Portuguese and English. And I think this was the same day I was, hunted on the beach. I was walking with my backpack, and there's just an old man coming up behind me. He's running up, and as he's approaching, I'm just walking faster. And he starts
Mhm.
yelling, and he's really old. So eventually, I just had to stop because I didn't want to be responsible for giving him like a heart attack or something. Uh, and he said, "The woman back there, she wants you." I asked him, "What do you mean he
Mm.
wants?" She wants me. Oh, she wants me. She wants you. She's the owner of the hotel. You gotta go talk to her. So yeah, that was like a weird introduction to Brazil. Uh, you're still around?
Yeah, am
Still
I
alive?
frozen? This is frozen on my end,
Yeah, it's
the
frozen on
video.
your end.
But the
Yeah,
audio is
I'll
still
just
working, huh?
yeah, it seems to be working for me.
Yeah. If
So
anyone has any ideas about how to stop this
unfreeze
from
Chris.
freezing, unfreeze me, yeah.
Fire,
But as
fire
long
breath.
as we've got audio,
Yeah, I'll just keep talking then.
yeah, yeah.
And those kinds of episodes were actually the reasons why I didn't come back to Brazil for a while. It's
Hmm.
like it was a little too much for me. But once the pandemic hit and Sweden was the most boring place on earth, coldest, darkest as well. And me and my friend Ola, he's famous from like the first 10 videos, we just looked at the world map and saw which countries are open, which countries are actually allowing people to enter. And Brazil was one of them. And that was when the love story really, hit me. It
Hmm.
was girls were a little more discreet than before, and it was just this vibe they have here in Brazil. Everything was normal. It was sunny. You could go to bars, restaurants. That just got me. So I got instantly hooked, and I haven't left, uh, in the sense of the heart since then.
Amazing. Yeah. Sorry, I got a bit distracted by the whole freeze, but I guess we're not frozen anymore, right? That like
Oh,
freaks me out. It
seems
just
really.
like, yeah, we're moving again. Yeah, man. But like, tell us, just if you could briefly just talk about your channel too. So that's like a little bit into like Brazil, but like for those of you who don't know your channel, maybe just give us a like an elevator pitch or just yeah, shout it out for everyone who hasn't seen it before.
Yeah, well, my channel it started just as a way to show my travels for my family. I had no intention of actually, showcasing it for other people. But once I started to notice other people were watching, uh, I started putting a little more ambition into making the videos. At the same time, my family got sick and tired of it. They basically stopped watching. And somewhere around here is when the pandemic enters, and I'm just totally focusing on Brazil and get a pretty good response from the audience. So since 2 years back, it's been totally, as you said, more or less focused on Brazil, trying to give the first time visitors view, like the real gringo view. people who don't have any clue what Brazil is, what to see, what to do, and at least, well, not the least in terms of safety. A lot of people want to go straight to Rio, which happens to be the not safest place in the world. So I put a lot of work into explaining how I got into problems and trying to help people not follow my routes.
Amazing. I've got so many, as a fellow content creator and a fan, I've got so many other questions to ask you around YouTube and stuff, but I'll keep it relevant to Brazil for today's stream. I've got some questions of my own. Then I've got some questions from Instagram, audience questions. And then a reminder to everyone watching on stream, if you have your own questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to keep this relevant to Brazil. So if you have questions, I see one here about freelancing. We're not going to talk about freelancing today unless it somehow relates to Brazil. I'm going to keep this on topic, but for the person who is asking about Upwork and freelancing, yeah, I'll probably do another stream and we can do that as a freelancing sort of topic.
But we're both digital nomads here, right? We both have the Nomad visa for Brazil.
I don't actually. Yeah, so I'm just here I've just got the 3 month and then I extended.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
but I do have some friends that they're on it
very
as well.
It's easy to get a Nomad visa for Brazil. It's valid for a year. It will cost you a total amount of like $300 to get it done. Totally recommend it. So the answer is yes. You can have a digital nomad visa here, and the requirements are very low. It's worth trying.
Rickard, did you just say you paid $300 all in for the digital nomad visa?
That was kind of an estimation, but first time you do it, it's easiest to do it from your local embassy, the embassy of your home country. And
you did it in your home country or at the embassy in Brazil of your home country?
No, I did it at the Brazilian embassy in my home country. And that's what's usually recommended when you're applying for this visa. So there will be a cost of roughly $100 there and another fee once you're in Brazil to validate it. And it will land around $300 in total.
Yeah, okay. The reason why I asked that is I have a friend in Sao Paulo. He told me his total cost of getting the visa was $2,000, and but he didn't want to go back to his country to do it. So like one of the tricky things with it, I guess we can just start talking about the digital nomad visa because that's on the. Whoa, Jesus!
Whoa,
sorry,
careful!
I just pulled a cable there. Just pulled a cable there. Yeah. Getting too excited there. One of I was talking about the digital nomad visa. I guess we can go deep into that now because that is relevant to Brazil and sort of people that want to spend longer here. Yeah, I have a few friends who have it, and you're the only person I've heard of that's gone home to get it, which I think is easier because one of the requirements is the birth certificate, right?
Yeah, I wasn't really going home to get it. I was already home. So it was easily done. And well, that is totally depending on which country you're from. I would have had to apply for my birth certificate to be sent to my home address and then have, a friend or someone picking it up, sending it to me digitally if I wasn't in Sweden. But I'm actually in my second round now. I'm here to extend my digital nomad visa for a second year. And that is a process I don't recommend my worst enemies. So
that's more difficult than getting it initially?
Yeah, because then you're stuck in the Brazilian bureaucracy and they love it here. And yeah, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. Actually, we got an audience question that's relevant to what we're talking about. What are the requirements for the digital nomad visa? Any income requirements? You do have to prove your income, don't you? Rickard, you're more of an expert.
You have to forgive me for, I cannot give you the exact sums, but I will give you a rundown in general. So the guidelines for the digital nomad visa is that you have to have a certain income, and it has to be from outside of Brazil. You cannot compete with local business here. So that's an absolute requirement. You cannot work in Brazil. The pay has to come from another country. And that pay, that salary should be above $1,500. I think it's the requirement of $1,800, or maybe it's just for me now with the second round. But somewhere between $1,500 and $1,800 a month, it's the minimum salary. But, and this is depending on your embassy, you could also just prove that you have enough funds to sustain your stay here. And that would be, I think it's $18,000 or $20,000 roughly. If you have that in your bank account, you can just show that in theory. In Sweden, the embassy required me to fulfill the work thing. That was an absolute must for them, and was a bonus if you could show you have savings. So that's the tricky part. It's written as if you're good with your savings, but it really depends on your embassy or which other institution is making the calls. So
you were able to prove that income and that it was remote, or like, were you making remote income at the time? Because I think you do predominantly YouTube now, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes. I did have an employer which paid me enough money to fulfill that first requirement. Yes.
Okay, but that was like a fully remote thing. You could like work in Brazil with that job.
Yes, it was actually kind of I'm a journalist. My base occupation is journalism. I've been trying to stray away from it because I'm sick and tired of writing. But those guys, they helped me with the application process. I sticked around long enough to actually get that thing approved. Now I'm not writing a lot, as little as possible. But those are the two: the savings on your bank and employment. Employment, I would say it's really, really recommended to get that part finished, because I haven't really talked to anyone who got the digital nomad visa without any proof of employment. And some people are self-employed, which makes it like a little more complicated, especially if you're dealing with the Brazilian authorities. Like any kind of papers, any kind of invoices that you can just show will help you a lot.
And if you're doing this like in your home country, like in Sweden, are you having to do this paperwork in Portuguese, or is this in Swedish, or like your?
No, that's a good thing about doing it through your embassy. You can do it in your local time, because that's your embassy in your home country. But yes, second year is much worse. So it will be. So stay for 1 year only. There's also a requirement that you have to show the last 3 months of your bank history. And that's both for you to like show you have a solid economy, but they also want to make sure you don't have income from, dubious places. So that is also a thing you have to do. You have to show the whole history from 3 months before. You also have to be not convicted. So you have to show, I think it's the last 5 years or something, that you cannot have been convicted. So you have to get that proof from your local police authority. And yes, birth certificate. And that's pretty much it. You need an assurance as well, but no one really checks that.
Yeah, just to summarize it here for why you tripping, we talked a lot about the income and the bank account stuff. The birth certificate thing is a tricky one if you're in the country already. For you, like doing it in Sweden, I'm sure that wouldn't have been one of the biggest issues. But I have a friend who literally like flew a friend in from Canada to bring the birth certificate. For me, I would have to have my mother fly it over, and I'm not sure if I trust international shipping of important documents to Brazil. I'm not sure about, some countries are not good with postage, and I suspect Brazil might be one of those countries. The other thing we didn't mention is the CPF. So you need a CPF, I believe, to do the digital nomad visa. and
That's
a
a
CPF.
that's a negative. That's a negative. You don't need it.
Oh, really? Oh, shit. Okay.
But it will
It
be
does
easier.
help.
Well,
Well,
maybe
not
it
with a
will help.
visa, but with life in Brazil, right?
Like, yeah, it helps life in Brazil. But the good thing with the digital nomad visa is it's much easier getting the CPF. So that's actually, I would do it the
Okay.
other way around, because
Okay,
as long
interesting.
as you fulfill these previously mentioned steps, you will get your digital nomad visa. And once you have it, you can just prove that you're a resident. And that will give you, I got my CPF in 3 days or 2 days because of this. CPF is the social security number in Brazil, more or less. It's your personal number. It's kind of the only way they identify themselves here. And since it's a big country, their whole economy is built just around their own system. So everything is connected to CPF here. Sometimes you can't even buy a bus ticket without having a CPF. So it's
Man, it's so
just,
annoying.
yeah, it's just something that helps you a lot. A lot of apps, if you want to rent a bike, for instance, one of these, just pick it up on the street, they usually require a CPF. So it's like, without a CPF, you will be locked out from many of like the conveniences of this country.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things bureaucracy wise just don't make sense to me in Brazil. Like, for instance, I can buy a coconut on the beach with my phone, tapping my, using Apple Pay in Rio, but I can't pay for my phone bill, for instance. I have I luckily have an assistant. Shout out to Better Call Carolina. I'm happy to pass that contact on to anyone who needs it. She's
She's really
basically,
nice.
oh yeah, you know her as well, huh? Do you
Yes.
like, does she help you out with some stuff or?
She was more like sending her condolences when I was robbed. I think
Mm.
by then I'd already been in Brazil and Rio such a long time. So she was actually asking if I could just give some input for her work. But she's a great person and has very good
Yeah,
advice.
let's shout her out with a banner right here. She's helped me out quite a bit. Yeah, basically a Portuguese speaking Brazilian who can help get around, especially this Portuguese stuff. For me, she was instrumental in helping me get the CPF because I went up to the Receita Federal and I went to the guy in front, spoke no English, and I'm just like, "Hey, I have my passport. Can I have a CPF?" And he's just like, in Portuguese. And I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to get past this because I have no idea what this guy's saying. Went back with Carolina, like, can you talk? And then he's like, oh yeah, did he pay for it online? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And then he's just like, oh sweet, just come back tomorrow with your passport and the receipt, and we'll give you a CPF. And I was like, oh sweet, like if he could speak English, he could have just told me that. But because it was in Portuguese, I had no idea. And I was like going to go off, hire some like visa agent or something. And then I was
Yeah.
like so relieved to get the CPF because back onto that topic of what is a CPF and what's it useful for. There was an event that I couldn't even buy tickets for because I didn't have a CPF. And then sometimes you can borrow a friend's CPF. So I borrowed my friend Brian's CPF, and then it said CPF associated with somebody else. You can't use it. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, so
And
I
it's also
literally could
illegal.
not buy it. It's also illegal, is it?
Yeah, kind of. Little depending. There's a CPF generator as well online. It
I
doesn't really
tried that
work.
one as well. It didn't work. Maybe I shouldn't be admitting to this publicly, but
But maybe the lesson to learn here is try to get a local Brazilian contact. Make friends. I mean, it's easy to make friends in this country because same story for me. My CPF, I was barely involved in getting it because I had a friend. She spoke Portuguese. She was like, "This guy, he needs a CPF now." I was just sitting on a chair for for 25 minutes, and so it's not really hard once you have a way into the Brazilian society.
And Rickard, that leads very nicely into this next audience question. about best ways to make friends and build a social network as an expat in Brazil. This was actually on the list of my questions as well, because I noticed in your videos you have tons of locals around. When you're filming moving footage of you, obviously somebody's filming that. So you've got like people to help you out with filming as well, by the looks of things. You seem to have done a great job of meeting and connecting with locals. I also had a question about Portuguese and how much that helps, but it seems like your Portuguese is quite good. So yeah, do you want to
let's start.
take it away for this question?
Regin, is that how you pronounce your name? Regin Doda? My first question for you is, do you drink alcohol? Because that's actually a valid question. If you're asking for my strategy to make friends and build a social network, it's very simple. It's just like that. You go to a place you like to be. For me, it's easy. I like to be at the beach. So I'm going to the beach, having a good time, having one caipirinha, not too many drinks. And you're just, you're feeling good. You're in the mood of talking to people. And in Brazil, if you bring the good vibe, everything just kind of flows. So you will start talking to one person and then get in, oh, yes, but only beer. Beer works as well, my friend. So
as long as it's some alcohol, right?
Yeah, one caipirinha translates to 2 beers, I would say. So just start with having a good time, vibrate good energy, start talking to people, and then you kind of just present to your newfound friends whatever it is you have on your heart. Maybe you want friends. You can actually say that. I'm alone here. I don't have any friends. That's a very good way to be invited to fun stuff. You could ask particular questions about how to visit the place. Maybe they want to, tag along, or maybe they know someone. It's just very simple talk, but talk in greater amounts than you would have done at home. I mean, spend the whole first 2 days just talking to anyone you can. That's how you build a network. So there's really no secrets around this here.
So the answer basically is go to a venue. You don't have to be with anyone else. Just get drunk and start talking to people, basically.
Yeah, don't get
too drunk.
It's kind of frowned upon to be drunk. So just loosen up, have that first one.
What's your latest video on how many caipirinhas is enough? Which I think the answer was 3, and then go out and talk to people after 3 caipirinhas. I think that's it.
Yes, if you're like normal built and man, I would say 3 caipirinhas is where you max out all the positive stats, all the positive boosts from having a caipirinha. After that, caipirinha will just start being a burden for you. So beach
but if anyone wants more information in that, they can watch the video, right?
Yes. So beach is one place. If you think that is too general, I might just throw one for Rio then. There's a couple of places in Rio where there's lots of other travelers, and also traveling Brazilians, or Brazilians interested in meeting travelers. So that's a perfect mix. One good place, if you can afford it, it's like a glorified hostel, Selina. The chain, the hostel chain Selina. They have become very expensive lately, but Selina, Copacabana will always be full of only travelers. So whenever you go there, you will always make friends with other travelers and Brazilians traveling. Because in Brazil, tourism is mainly consisting of Brazilians traveling their own country. As gringos, as foreigners, we're so small in comparison to the local tourists. And the other one is like any major hostel. I could personally recommend Ipanema Beach Hostel. They also arrange 2 times a week meetups for foreigners. So they're hosting a big party once every week. So that is another way to make friends and build a social network. And that way you will get both foreign travelers and make Brazilian friends.
Amazing. Yeah, I can also confirm that about the local domestic tourism in the digital nomad scene as well. Most of the places I've been to, the digital nomads are all foreigners. So like in Thailand, you meet another digital nomad, it's unlikely they're going to be Thai. In Bali, it's unlikely they're going to be Indonesian. In Brazil, there's not many digital nomad hotspots from what I can tell, but I went to the place that's supposed to be the biggest digital nomad hotspot in Brazil just recently, called Pipa. And I went to a meetup there, and I think about half the meetup was Brazilians, which was so new to me to see like people from that country in the digital nomad community, because typically hang out in like Southeast Asia or these places where the locals are typically not nomads as well. But I found that interesting in Brazil. You know, there's a perception that Brazil is like a poor country, or that there's not an upwardly mobile percentage of the population. But one thing I've found is that there's definitely a part of the population that's doing quite well for themselves. And you know, it's not too hard to find those people, because they'll hang out in the same places that you'll hang out. So you're never really too far from a local. I'm not sure if you have much experience in Southeast Asia, Rickard, but like some of the places like Bali, for instance. Yeah, okay. I was just going to say that like in Bali, for instance, you go to a trendy bar in Bali, you'll be surrounded by foreigners, and like if you meet a Balinese person like actually sitting there drinking, you'll be like, oh wow, a Balinese person. So like, but it's not like that here.
For you Aussies, Bali is like what Norway is for Swedish people.
Norway is really, you love Norway, huh?
No, I mean, it's like your neighboring country. It's a next door backyard.
Oh, but it's a paradise. I don't know if Norway is a paradise to you guys, is it?
No, it's not a paradise for a Swedish person, because our currency is at the moment trash. And
really? Oh, maybe my next trip should be to Sweden then.
Yeah. Come to Sweden, enjoy the cheap prices. It's horrible.
All right. Next question from my friend Nick here. Will Swedish Gringo confirm the northeast of Brazil is the best? Some context here. Nick is currently in the northeast as well, and he loves it. You are obviously in Fortaleza like I am. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on the northeast? Is it the best part of Brazil?
So a lot is riding on this answer here. Stakes are high. Actually, I got this question a few times before, and as always with Brazil, there's no real simple answer. If you're staying in Brazil for a long time, and especially if you want to get work done, the Northeast that's the optimal place to be. If you're working, if you want to enjoy awesome beaches, if you just want to take it a little slower. If you only have 3 weeks in Brazil, I just can't tell people not go to Rio. It would be like stealing a big part of the soul of Brazil away from them. So I would say the Northeast is still like the second step for a traveler to Brazil. They have to find what they like and dislike about the southeastern part, where I count Rio as well, to really fully appreciate the Northeast. I've been hanging with a guy here from the States, and he came straight to Fortaleza. It was his one and only destination in Brazil. He's been staying here for 2 months, and this was
the guy from the Caipirinha video, or
that was a guy. Yeah, that's Mason.
Yeah, okay.
Mason from Utah. Yeah, and he felt real sorrow. He felt real sad about that. He felt like he had been not been experiencing Brazil to the full extent. And I totally get him there. The Northeast is a place to really enjoy the more quiet side of Brazil. Safety is higher, beaches are awesome, but it's simply less crazy.
So Mason didn't end up going to Rio even after Fortaleza.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to push him there, but then he went out of time, and now he's actually back in Utah as of today. So
oh wow. Okay.
So I can consider both perceptions.
What do you say to that?
Both perceptions. Peace, but, I will confirm the Northeast is the best place in Brazil. It's the best place in Brazil once you've gotten to know Brazil. But it's not only.
Nick likes your answer, and I would have to agree with you as well. So like Nick actually was like, hey, when you come to Brazil, come to straight to where I am, which is João Pessoa in the Northeast. And I'm like, look, I've never been to Brazil before. I got some friends in Rio. I'd have to take multiple flights to get up to João Pessoa. I'll definitely see you up there, but I got to do Rio first. And I think that was a good decision. Now I can say I've been there, done it, sort of thing. And like, I mean, the Rio is the only sort of like, it's the iconic city of Brazil, right? So like when you go back home to your friends and say, oh, I went to Brazil, they're going to like, oh, did you see Pão de Açúcar?
Yeah, that's what everyone is expecting. Yes.
Yeah, so you might as well get that out of the way, you know? Sorry, did you cut out there? Sorry, I just want to make sure I didn't cut you off.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Okay, cool. But yeah, no, and then the other part I agree with is that it's better. Like I am having fun, like I'm enjoying myself now. Whereas like Rio, I mean, Brazil is a fun country, but like I didn't enjoy it as much as I think you did, judging by your videos. I'm enjoying being in the Northeast because it feels like I'm in real Brazil now. It feels like I'm in where, like Rio is almost like too cookie cutter. It's almost too, I don't know. That's just been my experience. But the Northeast, it feels like I'm in real Brazil.
A metaphor for Rio, which I just made up, so I might not be able to stand by it. It's like Rio is a moving train. So if you manage to catch the train, Rio is one hell of a ride and you will have the best time of your life. But if you get off sync with Rio, it can be frustrated, and it can kind of grind you down as well. So some of my visits to Rio, I kind of didn't time it right, which is like you end up with one hell of a hangover. Your body is, worn out, but you didn't really feel you had the ultimate experience. So it's a little tricky with Rio because you got to plan, you got to manage your time. You got to choose which days to party, which days to do the sightseeing, to not just kind of get tired of the whole thing.
Another question from Nick here. Floripa in the summer is hard to beat though. Have you been there, Swedish Gringo? I know you have because I've seen your video. I'll just say something quickly. Floripa is definitely on my list. I have to see it before I leave Brazil. But yeah, question for you, Rickard.
Yes, Floripa is short for Florianópolis, and that is just south of, nothing is just close to anything in Brazil because it's a huge country. But if you continue south from Rio, you get to Sao Paulo, and then you will eventually come to the state of Santa Catarina, where Floripa or Florianópolis is like the big place. And it is famous for two things, or three things actually. It is famous for being exceptionally safe. It's famous for having awesome beaches, fantastic beaches. And third one is the most beautiful people in Brazil, according to themselves. But yeah, people
Can
are
you
very
confirm or deny that, Rickard? Because I've been getting that question as well, but I haven't been there yet, so I can't really confirm it.
I can confirm people are pretty, but it's like people are saying they are pretty and they know it. So that's something you get as well. You get the attitude which comes with people knowing they look good. And in my particular taste, it reminds a lot of Europe, which makes sense because there's a lot of German descendants. The whole society there is built more on European standards than pretty much anywhere else in Brazil. And yes, bold perceptions, he was asking about the summer, because that's the case. Once you get lower than Rio, seasons actually start mattering a lot. See, Brazil is not only 30 degrees warm and sun all the time. When you're getting like south of Rio, you will start having seasons. And Floripa, it's kind of cold half of the year. It's a beach paradise. It's got all these beautiful beaches and glorified nature. It's a super good place to be. But if weather is not on your side, it's gonna be no people there, and not very, you can't really do that much. So very few things beat Floripa during summer, and if I might add, when things are happening. Whenever there's a weekend, whenever there's a holiday, people just come in, big crowds to Floripa, and it's built like a huge stadium. It's built to host people. So when things are happening in Floripa, it's an awesome place to be. But since it's built as a stadium, it has a tendency to feel a little empty if you don't time it with the rest of the people. So usually you would advise people to go to a place when there's less tourists there. But for Floripa in particular, I would say go when people are going, but make sure to book hotels in advance and stuff like that, so you actually fit.
Okay. While we were on the topic of weather, I just thought I would feature this comment from the audience. Maybe it's me because I grew up in Brisbane, which is a hot city. It's kind of similar weather to like maybe Sao Paulo or Rio. But I almost feel like it'd be like the weather up here is not necessarily ideal. Because it is hot all the time, but I don't actually like sweating all the time. Like I grew up sweating every summer.
I like this.
Yeah, but you're from Gothenburg, right? Or in Swedish, you say it.
You know so much about me,
or something like that.
Yeah,
I've done my research. I watched your only other interview.
Wow. I'm getting
before doing this one.
Yeah, I'm from Gothenburg, which is famous for wind and rain. Apart from being a city in Sweden, a country which is famous for darkness and cold. So yes, I come from a town which is dark, rainy, windy, and cold. So for me, Fortaleza climate is definitely ideal. I love the fact that it's always every day, at least half of the year, it's just 30 degrees every day. I love it.
Yeah. Again, I think it's a personal preference sort of thing. Because I've met one person actually who does come from a cold place, Minnesota, and met up with him in Bali, and he's just like, it's too hot here. I can't do it. So like, and actually I have a friend in Rio who's just like, I'm going to leave every summer in Rio because I can't handle the heat. So yeah, everyone's different. So yeah, I don't know. I'm quite try to be quite balanced and objective. So I'm like trying to say like, when we're talking about better weather, we're talking about warmer weather. So I guess it depends on who you are, but
I'm the kind of guy I laugh at Brazilians when they're thinking it's too hot. It's never too hot for me. People think I'm crazy. So
have you been to Dubai, bro?
My response to ADS FASDF is Fortaleza it has the best climate in the whole of Brazil. If we're like you and me, there's no better place. It's the perfect place if you love sun and heat, because even during the second half of the year where it's supposed to be less good weather, it only rains a little bit more, but not a lot. So it's always perfect up here.
Yeah,
I love it.
Comment here from Nick about Sweden. Not really relevant to Brazil, but I thought I would share it anyway, seeing we're on the topic of weather and Sweden and Brazil. I got some more audience questions, but I'm going to throw in one of my questions because, I'm selfish. But I think it's going to be relevant to everyone listening. How much of the language do you need to speak in order to like connect with the people in the way you do? I'm obviously, well, perhaps not obviously, but I am learning Portuguese and I'm trying. But from watching your videos, it seems like you're much more advanced at Portuguese than I am. How in general, how would you say like Portuguese helps your experience? Because you mentioned being here longer, like my friends in Rio all had been here longer. And so like arriving in Rio and being in this group of like foreigners who all spoke to me fluent Portuguese, it made me a little like, oh my God, like I'm such an idiot. Like,
I can assure you, they don't speak fluent Portuguese. It's just that when you're starting to speak a little, you can get a long way with it. So don't feel too pressured about that. I can guarantee you, like grammatically, they're not speaking Portuguese at all, like fluent. But just to answer the question, I get this quite often as well in my channel, and sometimes I'm debated over it because people simply don't agree. But from my point of view, of course, I can make myself understood better since I am speaking Portuguese. I understand what people are saying to me. But the question is, in order to connect with people, I made just as many friends my first visit as I'm doing now. I might even be making less friends now because, the new car smell is a little gone. Things are normal here. When I was just high on life, talking to everyone, I made the same amount of contacts back then, not speaking Portuguese. Because if you want to talk to people here, they will make a way to understand you. So if you only speak English, use English and sign language. If you know some Spanish words, even though they're not technically speaking Spanish here, throw in like all the Spanish words you know into your English. Once you're getting to learn some Portuguese words, throw in whichever Portuguese words you know. So it's not actually really
they call
about
that Portuñol, right? It's like
Portuñol is like a mix of Spanish.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of connecting with people, because you can do that without the Portuguese, but it's a matter of understanding each other. That's where the Portuguese. I'll just keep talking.
Yeah, I'm just going to plug in my light because it ran out of battery, and I'll just plug it into power. 1 second.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I'll keep talking.
Actually, I think you finished that point, so I will bring up a new question from the audience. This is just for you, so yeah, let us know.
All right, Modib. Well, I finance my life in Brazil. The greatest part is through my YouTube channel. I'm not making a great deal of money from it. I am currently making around $800 a month from viewings only, or well, ads, that is. And also the occasional sponsor will chip in a few $100s a month. So that's like the base, the core. That's not a lot of money. That's not enough to survive 1 month in Brazil. I do also rent out my apartment in Sweden. So that's like the little extra that gets me over the points. But at the moment, I'm not actually making money. I'm just kind of staying afloat. So you can survive in Brazil if you have a income of around $1,500. I would say that's the like absolute least you have to make to break even. And that's pretty much where I am. Well, maybe a little more with the rental money, but that is how I finance my life in Brazil. I hope it will increase, because this is not going to be able to go on forever. I need my pension money. I need something to live off when I'm getting old for real.
Yeah. I love how at the end of all your videos it's like like subscribe to the channel so I can make more money and buy more caipirinhas.
Yeah, but it's not really about making more money. It's so I can survive. It's the honest truth. There's where I am right now. It's like every month it's a gamble if I'm gonna be having to use my savings, or if I will just barely survive of the work I'm doing.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate the risk you're taking to provide entertainment for all of us. I would suspect you really enjoy it though, and that's yes. The main reason why you do it, right?
It is a choice. I did quit my job, pretty well-paid job as a journalist, to do it. So I only have myself to blame if this adventure someday ends.
But the great thing about YouTube and building sort of your own online thing is that I think it's like all entrepreneurship. There's like a pain period at the start where it's just like you're building something from scratch. So it's not going to make money from day one the way a job would. But then once you reach a point, you start exceeding what you could make as an employee. and then you it's yours, you own it, and you can just scale it to the moon. So with YouTube, I probably wouldn't recommend anyone get into it unless they actually enjoy it, because it is a bit of a slog.
Because you said there's a period. Just to clarify, that period will be years. So make sure you got some money saved, or like a part-time job or something, because it does take a lot of time to actually earn real money through YouTube.
Yeah. So I'm actually, 800 a month is pretty good, pretty impressive. I mean, I don't think I was making that much through ad revenue. Only when videos popped off, and that month I was making maybe more than that. So yeah, maybe that was back in like 2016, 2017 though. So maybe ad rates have changed or whatever. But I noticed you get pretty good view numbers for your subscriber ratio. I think that's a testament to the quality of your videos, and also niching. The last time I made a video on Thailand, it got like 300K views. So I know that if I make more videos on Thailand, I'm going to get views. That's the problem with making videos, like making videos on one thing over and over again, building an audience in that, and then switching, is like you risk kind of like alienating that audience. But yeah, I'm not going to live in Thailand just to get views on YouTube. But if you genuinely enjoy what you're creating content on, I mean, it's a win-win. And obviously you enjoy.
That's rule number one. You gotta love it.
Brazil.
You gotta love it passionately. You gotta know that you will love it the next year and 3 years to come. So let passion be, your passion.
Let passion be your driving force, maybe.
Yes, I do too, Modi. I do. I'm sitting here with this empty can now. I don't know what to do. The abstinence is kicking in. Where are the sponsors?
Speaking of sponsors, I mean, like, you're you sell Brazil so well. I reckon you could partner with Brazil Tourism at some point. There's like what's that guy, the Gringo in Brazil or something, on Instagram? I'm pretty sure he's like fully sponsored by like Brazil or some tourism authority. If he can do it, surely you can. I mean, I don't really follow him closely, but I don't think he makes YouTube content.
He's a wee bit bigger than I am, but sure. I have a lazy approach to sponsorship. I kind of just sit around waiting for them to come to me.
But I love how you spin it into the videos. It seems natural because you are sort of like naturally salesy, I guess. Maybe salesy is the wrong word, but like you're naturally like jazzing things up. So like to throw in like, and if you don't want to like lose your passwords, get a VPN, you know, like it actually blends quite well.
I'm a little cheesy.
I guess that's it. Cheesy is the word. This is kind of on the topic of YouTube. My thoughts on this, I mean, it's a balance of consistency and quality, right? If you're going to post every day and it's shit, and it's like bad quality, you're not doing yourselves any favors. If you post an amazing video once every 6 months, you're not doing yourself any favors. You got to find sort of that middle ground where you're pumping out as much quality content as you can. If you can make an amazing video 7 days a week, definitely do that. But inevitably, if you're trying to pump out that much content, there's only so much the quality will have to suffer. Rickard, thoughts on this?
Yes, I've actually been experimenting a little with accelerating my publishing speed, and I've done it for about a month now, and I haven't really got the kind of answer I was hoping for. It's of course, as you're saying, if it's quality, but it's not an absolute truth that just posting a little more often will help you. I think focus on the quality and building a core audience, and post as often as you possibly can. Yes. But I increased my speed double, and I've actually seen my viewing rates going down. So
wow, interesting.
They're tricky.
And one thing I would say with my experience on YouTube on this sort of topic, this is kind of off topic for Brazil, so I'll try and keep this brief. But it's better to like think strategically about what are people searching for, what's going to pop off, what's go viral, and spend that time working on the strategy, then create it, and then that video ends up going viral and just bringing a flood of subscribers to your channel. That's been my experience. I created one video that popped off way better than the others, and that brought a lot of subscribers, and that just floods more views to the rest of your channel and gets you traction. I actually had a video that I didn't intend to do well in the first 6 months of YouTube. It was how I learned to code. And like somebody literally asked me, how did you learn to code? And I posted it. And for a while there, it was ranking for the search term how to code on YouTube. And so like that racked up like 300K views or something. And like now it's dead because obviously that search term is competitive and people are actually targeting that search term. But back then I just got it. And that was single-handedly, it's like kind of like the 80-20 rule. It was almost single-handedly bolstering the growth of my channel.
Yes.
So
that's a good, fair point. Mix it up. Try to do a few viral videos. Just not always thinking only about SEO. Just get something that pops. And to my experience, those can have a little lower amount of quality as long as it's interesting. And when it comes to traveling, especially in Brazil, location matters greatly as well. So when I'm posting from Fortaleza, obviously it's less interesting for the general traveler because they don't really know about it. So posting the same kind of video from Rio would generate much more views. That is right.
But then also like the people in the Northeast are more excited that you're creating content on their city, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading what you've written.
I made this, oh, sorry, I just took that one off. Sorry, just on the topic of YouTube, and then we'll wrap it up. I can talk about YouTube forever, so there's a risk of this taking too long. But just content creation in general, I guess. Nick actually pushed me, Bold Perceptions, he pushed me to create this reel from João Pessoa, and it's my most watched reel on Instagram and on TikTok. And it's just basically about the best cafe to work remotely from João Pessoa. And if you look at the comments, it's all like the locals being like, oh, look, a gringo coming and appreciating my city. And I think that happens quite a bit on travel YouTube, not just with Brazil, like other underappreciated places where they see foreigners coming and appreciating it. You can get some views from the local people that way.
Yes.
But yeah, like you said, with like people outside of Brazil, Rio is the figurehead, so to speak.
Brazilians are very, very receptive to flattery. So best cafes in a less traveled place could really hit it. My most viewed video is why Brazilians are the best. And for obvious cases, the audience consists mostly of Brazilians, and that one has like 720,000 views, something like that. They love it because Brazilians love to see positive things about themselves and places they like as well.
Yeah, and that's something I maybe was going to get to in the stream at some point, but like, you know, the reason why I came to Brazil is because my experience with the Brazilian people outside of Brazil has been great. And so, yeah, I'd say the number one thing for me about Brazil is the people. So I can understand why that video popped off. But anyway, I don't want to talk too long about YouTube because we're trying to keep it on the topic of Brazil. We got a question here from Why You Tripping. Probably more of a question for me, but maybe for you, Rickard, as well. Are you familiar with like other digital nomads and the community or the scene at all? Or basically you just work from home and then connect with the locals?
No, but I'm agreeing with you there. Pipa is known to be like the prime hotspot for digital nomads in Brazil, which is fun because it is way off the grid for any normal Brazilian. Closest to Rio, the place I found most digital nomadish was Búzios. It's about 2 hours outside of Rio. But in general, no, Brazil isn't really, I think it's too big. It's too big the country is too big. Things are too local. It's not really, geared towards foreign tourism in that sense.
Yeah.
So there
what
are
would
very
you? Sorry, I cut you off there. What would you, just to say, you said digital nomady or something, like, what is your definition of that? Like, was it like the internet was good there? There's like cafes where people were working from. You just saw a lot of digital nomads there, or what do you mean by that
yeah.
specifically?
No, actually spotting other digital nomads and
Okay.
infrastructure places to work. There are very few like co-working places. I mentioned Selena Hotel in Rio, Copacabana, before, a way to make friends that are traveling. But that's also about the only hotel in Rio I know of that is, focused on digital nomads. So if you are a digital nomad and you want to meet others, that's a place you go. But in general, in Brazil, it's kind of a thing you do on your own. Here, you will not have a big community around you.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I do appreciate a digital nomad community. People that have been following me for a while know that I'm into that. And yeah, I didn't come to Brazil for that specifically, but I did go to Pipa specifically for that, to test it out, because if you search digital nomads Brazil on Google, probably YouTube as well, all of the marketing, digital nomad marketing, seems to be coming from Pipa. Like if you look at digital nomad Brazil, I think the website, it like has only Pipa as its only destination. Actually, I've got
hijack the term digital nomad, but I think your experience as well is that it's not even Pipa is really, that community you would think it is. There's not that many digital nomads even in Pipa.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I was about to mention actually that my next video is on Pipa, and I talk exactly about this. So yeah, my channel, try to keep it relevant to like digital nomad hotspots and communities and stuff like that. So yeah, I've decided to make a video while I was in Pipa. But yeah, like it's crazy. Like there was the place that I stayed had this marketing that, like, I'm going to quote them in the video, but it was just like, work in this paradisical, super productive, amazing space for digital nomads. And it's literally like a wooden deck at the bottom of a bar that is just used for like forho events on a weekend. And they just put outlets in there, and there's Wi-Fi. So they call it a co-working space. So yeah, if you're looking for like specific digital nomad, like a digital nomad paradise, Brazil is, I wouldn't say Brazil is the top of the list. And that's why probably it took me a long time to come here, because my priorities and sort of like what I'm looking for has sort of changed a bit. But I used to only stick to like the digital nomad hotspots back in the day. But seeming I was in João Pessoa, only 2 hours drive away from Pipa, I like went to go check it out. But yeah, can definitely agree with you. It's not like a amazing digital nomad. It's a great place, don't get me wrong, beautiful. We're both going to have videos out by the end of the year on it. Obviously yours is out now. Beautiful place, but in terms of like working remotely, and there's no co-working space there. So yeah, and that's the front of the marketing for digital nomad Brazil community. So yeah,
go there for the beaches, go there for the party, especially the boat party. I got a video on that. And yeah, it's one of my highest recommendations for like places to go in Brazil, but not particularly to work from there, just to visit it.
Yeah. Buzios is spelled Buzios. Is that correct?
Yes, with a little thingy over the U, but Buzios, like you said, that's it.
Yeah,
it's just outside of Rio. I think it's part of the state of Rio de Janeiro as well.
Okay, cool. Man, got a lot of questions to get through. I'm going to mix in another one of my own questions here. People love to talk to you about this, I'm sure, because, like it's a good headline. I don't want to get too caught up on talking this whole stream about danger or whatever. I've already watched your stream with Delane. specifically about this, but I just wanted to address like, I guess, safety briefly, and how does it feel, like change the way you feel in Brazil now? Like, do you feel less safe? Because what's interesting for me is like, obviously the safety question is the first thing that people ask about Brazil. And for me, I don't feel unsafe at all. And I was thinking about it today. Like I walked past this kid on the street in like, and this street, like, I don't remember the name of the street, but maybe there's this like huge decrepit building.
Oh
near,
yeah, that's the one in Iracema. Yeah, close to the beach.
And when I saw that building, I was just like, let me not take a photo of this and to show how beautiful Brazil is. It's the most decrepit building I've ever seen. And so
and it's also very close to the tourist street, but that's not a place to be hanging around.
Yeah, I only walk there during the day. But like I'm walking down and there's this like I'm watching my back, like I'm looking over my shoulder. And then I was thinking to myself, like, that would bother some people having a look over their shoulder, but just being like looking over your shoulder and being aware, I think goes a long way, and it doesn't bother me too much. And because nothing ever bad has happened to me in Brazil, I think that's why I feel a sense of security, perhaps a false sense of security. But then my friends who have had something bad happen to them, it's kind of scarred them. And then now they feel unsafe because they know what can happen because they've experienced it firsthand. So I guess relating it to my own experience, and obviously you've had 2 run-ins. This is both covered on your channel in detail if anyone wants to check it out. And also like tips to avoid it. You posted recently about this. But like, I just want to know, like, has that changed the way you feel? Because from what I can see, it hasn't really changed your love for Brazil or anything. What has it sort of changed for you? Do you look over your shoulder more? Does it make you like Brazil less? What's sort of your thoughts now being robbed twice in Brazil?
I try to separate my feelings for Brazil with the experiences I've had in terms of safety. So when I have been, just for the record, I've been robbed 2 times in Brazil. Once was pretty, typical. I was walking the beach filming, and a kid came up from behind and took the phone, and I ran after him. But this was orchestrated, so there was 3 guys waiting for me and beating the crap out of me. So they obviously got away with my phone. That didn't change me at all. It kind of annoyed me because it turned into this, insurance thing. I had to go to the hospital. I got just a lot of paperwork. That's basically all it was. I did learn to perhaps not walk the beach with my phone up. But I didn't feel scarred in any way. It didn't change me or my feelings about Brazil in any way. My second robbery was in the more famous party area of Rio. It's called Lapa. That's where people go late at night to enjoy the nightclubs and, well, just have fun. Now you've been freezing.
Yeah, I think we've got the same problem as before. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. All good. All good here.
Yeah. Let's just keep talking and wait it out.
I'll keep talking.
Hopefully it comes back. It's probably my computer. Sorry, guys.
So the thing is that when it comes to me and my experiences, I also have to take into account that I've been staying for a longer and longer period of time in Brazil. I've been learning more about the country. I've been learning more about specifically how Rio works. And there are, objectively speaking, reasons to think about safety in Rio. And the more you know about it, the more you will be, observing and try to calculate what's a risky and not risky thing to do. So separating feelings from actually trying to stay safe, those are 2 different things. I'm thinking a little more about safety after these 2 occasions because I know what it's about. In Rio as well, I kind of have my eyes on me because people recognize me. Also the criminals recognize me by this point, which means I have to take some extra precautions because of that. So short answer is my love for Brazil hasn't changed because, the crime that happens to you is not a direct result of the people living there. The people in Brazil are still as great as they were before. They're still as nice. They're still as friendly. As still as helpful. But there is a good idea trying to minimize risk in some parts of Brazil. Uh, Obviously, up here in Fortaleza, crime looks different. For tourists, it's much less of a risk. It's much less of a risk to be the victim of crime. The high crime statistics up here, they are directly related to the drug trade going from Amazonas, Manaus. There's a drug route going to Fortaleza, and a lot of problems in the favelas. And those are almost exclusively like local disputes. And that's where the violence happens in this city. So if you don't don't go walking into favelas in Fortaleza, you have eliminated basically 85% of the risk. Then there's some minor theft along the boardwalk. That's usual for bigger cities in Brazil. Like you have motorcycles or bikes running past you, and they might be trying to snatch a bag or something like that. I've never even been close to see or experience this. So even that is much less than in Rio, for instance. But there are like kind of general crimes that happen in big cities that's good to be aware of. But there's no reason to ever be scared of going to Brazil. Let's just calibrate a little in your brain once you're going to places like Rio or Sao Paulo or Salvador. Those are places you have to just think a little more. And once you're going to the more safe places, you can just totally disconnect the whole safety brain of your body.
Yeah, man. I feel like we could talk a lot about safety. I definitely agree with you on the point that, I mean, Brazil is a place of two worlds. If you are born and grow up in a favela, your experience is going to be very different to if you grew up affluent. And your life, unfortunately, in the favela is probably going to be filled with a lot more violence. And the thing is, as unfair as it sounds, as long as you've got money in Brazil, there's ways to stay safe. So you'll notice like outside of favelas, people have gates. All the houses have gates and security systems. So yeah, like for instance here, like I mentioned to you before, like I don't think I'm in the like safest area. Like I wouldn't go walking around here late at night. But I've got the door downstairs locks. There's 24-hour. There's staff on the premises 24/7. My door locks up here. Like I don't feel unsafe. But if there wasn't safety features in my building, maybe I would start to feel unsafe. But safety features in buildings are standard across Brazil because of the crime. So there's lots of crime, you could say, but then there's also lots of precautions taken as well. And then obviously the precautions are on us as well to be aware. I think it just comes down a lot to awareness and knowing we're taking risks. I went to a free concert on the beach in Rio, and a friend of mine went to the same concert and didn't take any valuables with him. I took my phone, but it was a rainier day in Rio, so it wasn't that warm, and so I wore a jacket, and it had an inside pocket, and I had my jacket zipped up. So I was like, it's going to be very hard for somebody to snatch my phone while it's in the inside pocket of my jacket. And then when I wanted to film the DJ, I took my phone up, and I was like aware that I'm putting it in a position to get stolen. And just by being aware, I think, who knows? These people are so quick, maybe they're, but I can't be like, if I did put my phone up and it got stolen, I can only blame myself because I knew the risks and I consciously decided to take that risk.
There's
but
always
the other thing is I'm aware. Like, I'm not going, let me just film the DJ. Everything's going to be fine. Like, you just got to be aware here. I mean, I don't know. What is your thoughts on that?
Yes, be aware. And if you're doing something like that, if you're showing people you have equipment, just switch location. Walk 1 minute to the other end. If this is a concert, just get lost in the crowd, go to another place. So keep moving. It's going to be good for your material as well to get different angles. So if you're filming in Rio, especially, don't be stationed in one place for too much time. Keep moving a little bit. That's going to help you a lot.
Awesome, man. we got a lot of questions here, but I want to keep this under 2 hours. So I'm going to jump into some of the Instagram questions here, just to get those out of the way, and then we can get back to the live audience questions. So we got an Instagram question here. I summarized this. It wasn't just how do you pay for stuff. There was like stuff on the end of it, but essentially it was a question about how money works in Brazil. I'll just go first. One of the things that surprised me about Brazil is that I can tap my phone. Not everyone, but a lot of people have a credit card machine. Tap my phone and I can pay that way. That is how I pay 95+% of the time, just using PayPass, which is something that we're very familiar with in Australia. So it was very natural for me, but then also crazy that, we don't have street vendors and people selling you stuff on the phone, selling you stuff on the beach in Australia. So like the fact that you can meet some random dude on the beach in Rio and he can take a credit card payment from your phone, that's crazy to me. Well, initially it was like, oh my God, this is so surprising.
But there is reason to be a little careful when it comes to this payment method. I'm sure you are also aware.
Maybe I'm a little naive here, but yeah, educate me.
If you're doing this little just tap and pay, make sure you're not paying with a credit card. Don't pay with any kind of big funds. Don't have it connected to like your bank account or something like that. Make sure it's just a little money which you're having just in that safe spot, because there's a lot of scams, especially geared towards tourists regarding this. So
like card skimming you're talking about?
Yes, a lot of it, and double pays, things you will never be able to, you cannot find that vendor again. So Brazilians simply don't use cash anymore. That's one thing that will surprise a lot of people. If you're trying to pay with cash, it will always be a hassle. They don't have change. You're gonna have to wait around. Because they have their own payment method here, which is purely digital. It's called Pix, and that also requires you to have the famous CPF, which we talked about before, personal number.
And so a bank account in Brazil, right?
Yes, it can be connected in some other ways as well, but yes, as a tourist coming here, paying for stuff will be a little tricky. My main recommendation for any temporary visit is still to use cash. I only tap my card when I'm at a place I am familiar with, a place that is known, a place I could return to if something was wrong. Never ever tap from street vendors, guys selling caipirinha, not even in Rio, like the things that look like beach bars. Well, they are beach bars, they're not clubs. Would never do it there. A lot of experience of people getting either scammed or just losing money because of some mix-up or problem. So solving these problems.
I pay for everything on card here. This is crazy. This is news to me. But maybe it's the phone. Maybe they can't skim the phone. Perhaps maybe that's my saving grace, because I've been 3 months here, tap pay for everything on my phone, never had a single issue. But maybe I'm putting myself at risk here.
Well, the clock might be ticking, but I mean, especially if you're in the cities, try to eliminate all the times you have to use your phone, especially for payments and stuff. You show you have an updated phone. People who might want to have your phone, they will see you using it, see where you're putting it. For all these small expenses, just keep a few bills around. That will save you problem like in the long term. if you're staying for a longer time and you actually get the pics. I have it on my phone. Life will get tremendously much easier. I use pics all the time because it's their own system. You cannot be, tricked.
And everywhere accepts pics. Like I don't think I've met a single person that doesn't accept pics in Brazil.
Yes, every single one. Every single one.
This is kind of, I put this up here because I think this is kind of relevant. It's on my to-do list, but I don't. What about you, Rickard? I mean, the reason why I don't do it is because I don't know if it necessarily helps. Like, because like, would I keep the dummy phone on? And if it's off when they're robbing me, would they be like, oh, this is an off phone, do you have another one? I'm not quite sure. What are your thoughts on dummy phones? Does it help, do you think?
This is one of the things that's constantly debated. If you're in Rio, and the locals in Rio, they're called cariocas. So the cariocas, they always tell you to bring a dummy phone wherever you go. And that's just a general rule in Rio. But they never do it themselves. So that's a funny thing. Everyone keeps telling everyone else to have a dummy phone. But as you say, it's a lot of work. And once you're actually in a very stressful situation of having like a gun pointed at you, chances are you will just freak out and just hand over your regular phone anyways. So I do have a second phone. It's not a dummy phone. It's in my case, it's an iPhone 10, because that's kind of where the limit goes still for, it can still have apps that will be working. You can get decent video quality, so it will be functioning like your number one phone in terms of you can get an Uber, you can make your bank payments if you have to, you can film and stuff like that. So it's not a dummy phone, but it's my, my second phone, and I use it at night, and I use it much more in Rio. If I go to the beach in Rio, I will use my second phone for that. But I don't carry like an extra crap phone just for robberies.
Yeah, just on that point, I would definitely recommend a second phone, because for anyone who's not aware, I believe it's the tax and import duties on Apple products make the Apple products double, if not more than double, what you would pay in the United States, which is crazy to me. I mean, like,
it's not just Apple products, but they actually they took the hardest blow for sure. Everything that's popular, everything that's new and popular will cost twice as much at least here when it's electronics.
Yeah. So for me, it's just like, and I've maybe I saw this with you interviewing some people on your channel, or I just see this while I'm in Ubers and stuff. I noticed they have multiple phones, and they'll use the shittier phone for their like nav and taking calls on and taking bookings on Uber. So if they do get robbed, they can give that phone. It's not necessarily a dummy phone because it works, right? Like they're using it to navigate and to accept trips on Uber. But I think what these drivers do is they have their nicer phone concealed. And so that's kind of like somewhere in the middle sort of thing. Another thing I've heard locals doing, my friend has phone insurance. So if she gets mugged, there's an excess. I think she told me it's like 700 reais that she has to pay. But, and I think she pays like maybe, I can't remember, maybe a few hundred reais a month or something. And so that can give you a little peace of mind that, if you do lose I'm not sure how easy it is as foreigners to get, but yeah, I think some
it's definitely not easy. Nothing is ever easy here. That sounds like a typical thing that's very hard to do unless you have the CPF number. It does.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing when it comes to phones and the dummy phone thing. And I don't mean to scare people here, but when you're in a situation where you're actually being robbed, that meaning being an armed person wanting your phone, that person will be familiar with the concept of a dummy phone. If you hand over,
this is what I was thinking.
If you hand over a phone that just doesn't seem to be the phone you're actually using, that could actually trigger aggression. And that is not a good thing to do in that type of situation. I I had a friend who was almost getting into like a very bad situation because he has a crappy phone. His phone is so crappy because he's not a phone guy. So when he was robbed
Oh
and
my God.
he handed over his phone, they just wanted to kick the crap out of him for trying to trick them. So you had to just strip off and show every pocket, every space he had on him, that was his only phone. So if you're in that situation and they find that you actually have a new phone, I'm not saying they're gonna terminate you, but they will probably give you just a little extra something for trying to play them.
And this is, I guess the point is, don't try and play the people that are robbing you. I think the safest thing you can do is give them what they want, and at least you walk away with your life and safety. And you can always replace money and phones later. So yeah, that's actually what I was thinking, and you just kind of confirmed it. There's just like, maybe a dummy phone could backfire, you know. I'll jump over to another Instagram question here before we dive back into live questions. I'll start with this one. The short answer is no. My experience with co-working spaces in Brazil is kind of like all bureaucracy. So to give you a story from Rio, I had some friends that booked a co-working space membership. They had an office that they shared, but every day when they went to the co-working space, the location of the office changed. So every day when they came, they said, oh, we have this office free, you'll have this one. They didn't have a permanent office, even though they were paying for an office. And then the other thing that was weird about it was, whenever they arrived, they had to identify themselves to security. They got a temporary card that got them through the security gate. Every time they left the building, they had to put the card in to get through this gate and then re-identify themselves to security to get a new card, right? So from my perspective, when I think of co-working spaces, actually, I did have a WeWork membership in Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo is the business capital, obviously. You'll find co-working spaces there. But for me, I wanted to use WeWork because I knew WeWork would be a similar experience around the world. That works as expected. So you go into the co-working space with your card, scan it, go in, and you have 24-hour access, or whatever their opening hours are, with your card, as you would expect. But there's some weird quirks. The one that my friend had was spaces. And then just looking at co-working spaces, I did some research I was going to spend some time in Natal, and my friend did some research for me. They had all sorts of it's kind of like that the Brazil bureaucracy and just things being weird. Like, one of the co-working spaces was closed during the middle of the day. And I'm just like, if I've got to go to a co-working space to work, why would it be closed during the middle of the day and then reopen? Like, it's just weird to me. And then the other things regarding, I don't know, I just don't even bother, because I just have the sense that it would be a pain in the ass in a lot of places, unless it's an international chain like WeWork, where I had faith that it was going to be robust and a similar experience to anywhere else in the world. But you can't take anything administrative or logistical for granted in Brazil, because they have all these weird quirks. And I think co-working spaces fits into that category. Rickard, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I simply don't do it.
Yeah.
Brazil is not a co-working space country. I do my work exclusively from my own home. It's, unless you're in Sao Paulo, it's too much of a hassle to set it up. It's not worth it.
I would, agree with that. 2 questions from my friend here. Why do gringos love Brazil so much?
Wow, that's Gringo with the capital G. Does that refer to me or foreigners in general?
No, I think maybe I'm typing these from Instagram, so I don't know if she used a capital G or not. No, she didn't. So that's a typo on my part. Sorry about that.
Do you want
to
me to
well,
do you want me to answer it like frankly?
yeah, answer it frankly, sure.
Yeah, I think especially male gringos, they get a very warm welcome to Brazil. Well, a lot of them do, and tends to be when I meet people who's just been here for a little while. That's what they're all revved up about. It's like it's so easy to meet people. It's so easy to meet girls, and by meeting girls, it's like from the Western or the European standard. You know that girls are actually talking to you, or that you manage
Yeah.
to kiss a girl. You know, get any kind of interaction from girls. That is much easier in Brazil. That is not the same as saying you can take them all with you to bed, but you will feel seen and heard in Brazil in a way you probably won't in your home country. So that is guaranteed to be one of the absolute top reasons why most men uh, really like Brazil so much. And this is just normal, regular girls, by the way. I am almost surprised by how few travelers I've met that are kind of looking for the dirty side of Brazil, which is also smaller than I anticipated it to be. It's simply less if you compare with like Thailand or Vietnam or something like that. Prostitution is not something you see in your everyday life like around you in Brazil. So all these
Yeah,
guys are
like
so happy
Thailand
about.
with like them lined up on the streets and stuff. Like, oh, not a good
Yes,
look.
in Brazil, it's if a girl comes up and talks to you, it's
Probably
probably
legit.
just gonna be a normal girl, and that is one of the reasons. The other ones are like the vibrant culture that people are happy, that their energy is kind of spreading to you. So it's all these you know quality of life things.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess to answer it from my perspective, I would say, yeah, the people. I mentioned that earlier in the stream that, my experience with Brazilians before coming to Brazil was positive, and I got the sense that people are fun and enjoy life here. And I actually got a lot of that sense from watching your videos too, because your videos are so fun. Everyone's just having fun. My friend and I were joking about how in all your videos that you go, "Why do you like this city?" And they're always like, "As pessoas, a cultura, as praias, as caipirinhas." Like they all say the same thing about the people, the culture, the drinks, the
Yeah.
parties, the beach. All the Brazilians are saying the same thing, and they know that they're fun, and they know they pride themselves on that, right?
Yeah, they also
Um,
they have a lot of love for the places they live, even if it's like from your perspective a pretty mediocre place. They really love it and they love the people, and that just shows that makes any place you visit in Brazil a little more fun than if that place would have existed in any other country, because the people in Brazil make the place more fun than it would have been in another location.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess to dive deeper into the question, why do gringos specifically love Brazil so much? I guess it's because that experience is different to what we're used to. We are used to more. I mean, I'm generalizing here. I'm from Australia. You're from Sweden, so there's obviously some differences there. But for the majority in the West, people are kind of cold and not as open as Brazilians, and perhaps a bit more stuck up and yeah, just not as warm and open.
For
That's
sure.
and so I guess the contrast makes it. We appreciate it a lot. I think Brazilians appreciate it too, but we appreciate it a lot because of it's not what we're used to, and it's a positive difference. And then
Can I add more?
otherwise, yeah, go on.
Especially for all you guys and girls, of course, arriving to Rio as your first stop. The thing that really strikes you there is you're not coming to Rio as a tourist. You are immediately kind of, soaked up in their own way of living, because the way of living for cariocas in Rio, I mean, if you don't have to be at work, that is enjoying the beach, being outside, having fun. So you will not be like distinguished as a tourist. Of course, people will know you're a gringo, you're a foreigner, but the kind of life, the kind of culture you're experiencing there, you're part of, it's their own. So it's kind of, you're not just visiting Brazil, you're participating. And especially for Rio, I would say, once you're coming up like in the Northeast, there's a little more specific kind of culture that's harder to understand. But Rio is just so easy to dive into and feel that you're just part of the show.
That's interesting that you say that, because it makes me think now, looking back on other travels, when you're a traveler, you're usually having more fun than the locals because you're traveling and the locals are going about their normal lives. But in Brazil, I don't know. I think, you could argue that some of the Brazilians are having more fun than us as travelers or outsiders, because that they, like you said, that that's just their way of life.
Yes. And they also know how to enjoy, and like in the definition of knowing how to enjoy, it's they enjoy more with less. That's something that's just keeps surprising me. Brazilians can be totally happy and satisfied with hanging out, like outside the place where there's music. They didn't fit inside the bars. They were just hanging out on the street talking.
Oh man,
That was still an
that's
awesome
such a Brazilian
night.
thing.
Yeah, or they could go totally crazy in the nightclubs. They enjoy socializing, and since they're having so much fun, it becomes fun to be hanging with them.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, I could talk more about that actually, but yeah, we could talk about a lot of these things for a very long time, but I want to keep this stream moving. Last Instagram question that hasn't really been covered yet. There was one or two that we kind of already covered the topic. What's your favorite city so far and why? I'll go first. It's hard for me to say. I know which was my least favorite, and it was Sao Paulo. And Rio, as we mentioned before, you have to come to Rio. It's like part of the experience of Brazil. It's iconic. If I had to make a decision real quick, I'd say probably Pipa, because Pipa was beautiful in the Northeast.
I'm not sure Pipa qualifies
Beaches.
as a city though.
Oh, true. All right. Well, in that case, it would be Rio then. But yeah, probably Pipa's my favorite sort of place that I've been to in Brazil. But yeah, I don't know. What's yours, Rickard?
Well, I'm guessing the reason you didn't like Sao Paulo as much is that there's a saying about Sao Paulo. It's the city where you can't see the sunset, because the buildings are high and they're so close together. You get this suffocating feelings at times in Sao Paulo. It's just a little too much city and too little breathing room. Sao Paulo is an awesome place to go out party. Lots of culture, good things, but if you are not a city person, you will feel like a little trapped inside like this huge maze of buildings. I like Sao Paulo, but it's not my favorite. Rio is obviously my favorite in terms of cities. It's the place I've spent the most time. So it's not a fair competition. So just if we leave Rio out of it, it becomes trickier because there's so many places that are high up on the list. I do agree, Pipa is an awesome place. I would say Jericoacoara beats Pipa just by a few meters. Jericoacoara is, as Pipa, more of a town. It's also very remote. Awesome beach, sandy dune destination with a lot of fun things to see and actually some really good nightclub options. But ooh, the best city. It's a tie. It's a tie between Fortaleza and
Rio. No.
No, Rio is in the top. Rio, it's not fair to have Rio in this.
Okay.
I would say Fortaleza then. I mean, as long as you've been to Rio before, Fortaleza is a really good second city. Then there's several really good locations you have to go to.
Yeah, is there anything, I watched both your videos on Fortaleza. Is there anything you can say about Fortaleza in terms of why it's your favorite city? I actually had it as one of my personal questions here.
Yes, I can say why. We already went through the climate thing, right? It's always sunny, the weather
Yeah.
is always perfect. But the other one is that it's not Fortaleza itself. Fortaleza is just in a good location to be visiting some of the
Mm,
absolute best destinations in Brazil. So you mentioned
yeah.
Pipa, for instance, but Pipa is not a place unless you really like that kind of life to stay for months. It's a place to visit.
Yeah.
Same goes for Jericoacoara, which is about a little less of a distance, but in the other direction from Fortaleza. So Fortaleza is between these two. And then you also have Natal, which is one of the biggest cities in the Northeast. It's close to Pipa and thereby not very far from Fortaleza. Once you're in Natal, you can go down to Recife and Porto de Galinhas. So there's like this belt string of a lot of things to visit, uh, all of them close to Fortaleza. And the
Okay.
other one is that it's just an easy place to work. It is. And nightlife activities, they are there. It's not as in Rio, but it's just, you get
Why
it
is
all.
it an easy place to work? Is this
Well, the
based on
irony,
the internet, or is it's just not as happening, so it's less distractions, or?
yes, that's the irony of the whole. Fortaleza is quite predictable. So in Rio,
Mm,
it's hard to manage your time because things just kind of jump on you. Things are just happening from nowhere, and you have to participate. In Fortaleza, you can plan your whole work week because you know it's going to be totally quiet during work hours of the actual work days,
yeah.
uh, and well, you can schedule your days, and the weather will always be good. So all you need to know is like, when am I going to this beautiful beach or this interesting destination, and you just go. Very easy to plan.
Yeah. All right, cool. Few more audience questions. We're almost at the end of the stream. This one's for me, I guess. I've already stayed here longer than my usual travels. Been here almost 3 months now. Why did I decide that? I kind of talked about it in my video around the world in 130 days. If you haven't seen that one, check that one out. But I went to 14 different countries in 9 months last year. And I was like, this is not working. I'm moving way too fast. Why am I doing it? Like, I had a lot of these existential questions like, why can't I settle? What's going on? And so I decided in 2023, that's the year, isn't it? 2023. Time goes by
Pretty
so
sure it is.
fast.
Yeah.
It's that I would just travel much slower, and I would just choose one place that really interests me, and I would go there. So Brazil, obviously a giant place, and I'm moving around city to city, but I have no plans on going any other countries this year. And yeah, obviously last year doing 14 different countries in 9 months, that was just way too much. Uh, Here, I'm just, and the other thing that motivates me to stay here and not leave, like in terms of like not going to like Argentina or uh, Colombia and stuff like that, is the language. So every day I'm doing a little bit of Portuguese study, and I don't want to confuse myself by going to a Spanish speaking country, then come back and then try and readjust to Portuguese. That's part of it as well. Um, yeah. Are Brazilians woke?
No,
Do you have any thoughts on this? No? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I guess
uh,
short answer is no.
there is. Brazil is. That's the funny thing with staying here for a longer time. Because if
Rickard,
you're here,
I'll just get you to, I'll keep talking. I just need to use the bathroom real quick. So I'm just going to go on mute and
yes, I can rant a long time when it comes to this one. Are Brazilians woke? So the thing is that when you're visiting Brazil for just a short amount of time, you will only see that like the surface of the country, and that will be that people are having so much fun. They like to not wear too much clothes on the beach. Music style is, especially the more popular kind, is very sexualized. There's a lot of dancing with the ass going on, and in nightclubs there's a lot of hooking up. Brazilians are very like keen on kissing. Kissing happens very fast in this country. Doesn't have to mean that much, but yeah, there's a lot of physical things happening, and not so much clothes on the beach, and showing skin in general in nightclubs and such, which would perhaps lead you to think that everything is just good, relaxed, and open-minded, and etc. But in truth, Brazil is a very conservative country. They're very Catholic, and especially like within the family, there's a whole different set of rules, and there's like two different worlds at the same time. I know I've strayed away from the book, but I will get back to that soon. So, for instance, if you're at home in underwear, that would be hugely inappropriate, even though those underwear show, less skin than your bikini would be doing at the beach, or your swim pants at the beach. So everything is like context here, within context. So it is not a woke country because it's not as liberal as you might think. It's very traditional. There's a lot of machismo, which is basically, that the men take liberties on objectifying girls, and the girls kind of have to play along with this. At the same time, the girls are supposed to be good girls for their family. So many contradictions all the time. And they're struggling with all of these things. And at the same time, there's like a little feminist movement, a woke movement going on. But it's just too many layers to penetrate. There's so much resistance within the Brazilian culture. You never really get to a woke place. What they do have, however, is a very open gay community, which happens in all the big cities. So people kind of migrate because of the machismo and things in general. Brazil is not, a place where being gay is the easiest place if you're living on the countryside or in a smaller city. But once you get into the bigger cities, the gay communities are so strong that they will provide a second world for anyone that's gay. So in Rio, in Sao Paulo, there's a scene in Fortaleza as well. Like pretty much any city with more than 1.5 million people live in, there will be, in the sense of woke, in the sense of you're free to have your own sexuality. But Brazil in general is not woke, and a lot of the jokes are made on behalf of people who are not following the streamlines, the rules. And one of the worst insults for a man here, it's, if you really want to make a man angry, it's to call him virgin. So that's worse than saying motherfucker to someone, is you're virgin. Man. Yeah,
that's what kids used to bully in high school. I haven't heard that one since high school. Virgin.
Yeah, it's fun, and they do get angry for real. Because that's building on the machismo thing. A guy is supposed to have, a lot of experience with women. Women are supposed to not have an experience at all. And yeah.
Okay. This was a question from a while ago, but I thought I would mix it up. A bit sort of off the topic of Brazil, but I guess one thing that's on the topic of Brazil is the time zone. As a YouTuber, it doesn't matter what time zone you're on, right, Rickard?
No. My only concern when it comes to that is my sponsors will be living in different parts of the world, and when they want to have a meeting, Brazil can sometimes be, because for some reason I have a lot of sponsors from the Asia part of the world, which is not super but
like
no,
Tsingtao.
like Tsingtao. Hong Kong still, as long as we have Hong Kong, they have a lot of companies reaching out for YouTubers for some reason.
Yeah, that'd be so funny seeing you promote Tsingtao in Brazil though. It's like so not Brazilian.
It's like... still hurting. Yeah, but they did a worldwide thing. They wanted to show that they were celebrating, I don't know if it was like 400 years, just, well, a very big celebration, and they wanted to show they have presence over the whole world. But they did obviously not have presence in Brazil.
Yeah. All right. There's a few other questions here, but I feel like we've like sort of covered them. And yeah, we're getting up to the 2-hour mark here. If anyone else has like a question that we haven't covered that we can talk about in the last 5 minutes, otherwise I'm just gonna, yeah, riff off and kind of ask my own questions, I guess. With you mentioned, Rickard, that your background is in journalism. I guess that's not, you were saying that before you don't write as much, but like I'm assuming those journalism skills play into YouTube. I mean, you write your own scripts and stuff, right? So you kind of are still a bit of a journalist, right?
There's no way of totally abandoning it, but I really hate writing. Writing stresses me out because that's the thing I try to leave behind. But yeah, I always end up being a journalist and a YouTuber. It's, I guess, both something that will help you and a curse, because I can't really get around it. Whenever I'm making a video, I always have to implement journalistic aspects of it, and that always, you know, makes videos, it just takes longer to make it because I can't just release something that does not have any journalistic purpose. Even my drinking the caipirinha video was still, okay, let's try to apply a semi-scientific method to this. At least show what's actually happening for every caipirinha you take. I can't just film things.
I mean, that's a good mix, and it gives your video structure too, right? Because you're informing and educating at the same time.
Educating in the science of caipirinha. Yeah, but sometimes I wish, you know, forget about that part and just film and just post things as you're supposed to. Thank you, Mitchell,
for that. Yeah. One last question I had for you, Rickard, is what sort of is there? I watched back your live with Delane talking about the robbery, and you said you can never get back into your iCloud. Do you still have accounts that are flying around that you don't have access to, or have you fully recovered from the robbery? The one, so that everyone knows what I'm talking about, the one where you got all your stuff robbed, including like digital accounts.
Yeah, they ran off with my flip-flops and my beach towel. That's like the extent.
Toothbrush too, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the toothbrush, perhaps, but it was just pretty much everything. So the thing is, once someone is actually taking over your Apple ID, and that is, in my case, since I had another phone lying around, that phone was the backup phone to my Apple ID. So by having access to both of those, the robbers could verify that they were moving the Apple ID. And once the Apple ID is actually moved to another device and they change the password, it is forever gone. Forever. So it doesn't matter how often you call Apple support, you can't do anything about it. You can't even shut it down. They're not allowed to do it. So from what I've heard is that it's not active. That's like kind of all the information they could give me. I'm not sure if it was because one of their own like safety stuff has been enabled, but that account is forever gone. All apps associated with that Apple ID, I don't have access to. So that is forever gone. For the rest of it, yeah, recovery.
So you just start a new iCloud account? Is that the solution?
Yes. You gotta get a new Apple ID, and you just build it all around that again. But all photos, everything that was linked to that Apple ID is forever gone and not possible to retrieve ever.
Man, I heard with Google, you can like go into Google's headquarters and identify yourself. They don't have anything like that with Apple, I guess.
No, I've been trying so many ways in Portuguese, sitting with Google in America, once back in Sweden, trying with Sweden, but it just won't happen. Google is much better. Google is much more flexible when things happen. They actually have understanding for that things don't always happen exactly as it's written in their little manual. So they will always try to find ways to retrieve your accounts, but Apple just no.
Amazing, man. All right, well, we've hit the 2-hour mark, and honestly, I wasn't even sure how long we would go for, but I appreciate you sticking around for 2 hours. We obviously had enough content or things to talk about. I reckon we could probably talk for another 2 hours about Brazil, but we'll leave it there.
I'm still gonna finish this video. I'm gonna be sitting for 3 more hours now, finishing the next
really?
one, which is gonna be
What's the next video on? Give us a little preview.
How much are the Brazilians cheating?
This will be a good one.
Yeah, it's been sought after for a while. It's not been the easiest one to make, but yeah, it's gonna raise a few eyebrows. I was actually, even with the experience I have from this country, I was a little surprised, and also surprised over and over by how outspoken Brazilians are. They sometimes, it seems, they have no boundaries. The stranger is coming up to them asking very personal questions, and they just pour it out.
Nice, man. All right, do you want to give a final sort of like shout out to your channel before we wrap up? I'm obviously can't say anything but great things about it. I'm a big fan, so I recommend everyone go check it out. It's just Swedish Gringo, impossible to miss. I think if you're watching this on YouTube, you can just click the name Swedish Gringo in the title. If you're on YouTube, it should be pretty easy to find already. But yeah, any last words, Rickard, before we wrap up this stream?
Now, if you're interested in my channel, just please note that I made like a travel guide for every possible part of Brazil. So it's not just Rio, it's not just party. Go there and check the different destinations you have in Brazil, just to broaden your horizons a little bit.
Amazing.
That's it.
And yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this stream. I definitely did. And I'm excited. Like I said at the start of the stream, I'm excited by this format. I honestly like that it's a different tab on YouTube. So it's like a different video feed. So I can keep my like edited video feed and then have like a separate feed for live videos. And I feel like it's a different format, long form, more, I guess, organic or like free flowing. And I've watched a bunch of streams myself and gained value from them. So yeah, this has been really fun, and yeah, stay tuned to the channel for more live streams, and obviously subscribe to Swedish Gringo as well.
You don't have to.
I'll catch you on the next stream. No, it's compulsory. It's compulsory that you have to subscribe to Swedish Gringo.
It's been a pleasure to be here, Chris. I'm very happy you invited me. I've been enjoying this talk a lot.
Amazing. Thank you for being here. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.